All right.
Right.
Welcome to the Domestic Draft Podcast. I'm Evan Bierman here with Dan Slowick. Today on the show, we're going to be talking beer with a special guest. It's Daren Rudy. He's the co-owner and head of brewing operations for Ataraxia Aleworks in San Diego, California. You see the can there. Dan's got the logo out. Daren, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we are pumped. So we've read up a little bit on, and Dan's been into the brewery too, but the brewery opened in 2021. But I read that you have over a decade of brewing experience. So I want to start there. Did you work at other breweries before you decided to open your own brewery, or were you simply home brewing for that long?
Yeah, so I started homebrewing for a couple of years, and then I got a job with Ballast Point, and I worked with Ballast Point for almost 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Nice. What initially kind of piqued your interest to get into home brewing? Because Evan does some home brewing on the side as well. And like, so what initially piqued it, and then how serious and how quickly did you kind of just obsess about it?
It was a friend of mine kind of introduced me to it. I had never even heard of home brewing. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know you could make beer at home. So he actually got me into it, and yeah, from the first time I did it, I was hooked.
So
I
you
was gonna say I just make kind of anything, anything I
Yeah.
can imagine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you remember that first beer that you made? Did you do just like a 1 gallon, 5 gallon? What was like?
It was 5 gallons. Yeah, it was just
So that's
extract.
starting off a little bit up there, right? I mean, like my first one was
Yeah.
1 gallon. I feel like that's like the intro. Like somebody buys you a gift, it's like a 1 gallon kit with a little jug, right? But
Yeah.
5 gallons to start off the bat, like you were knowing you were going to be into this, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was my roommate at the time. He had just broken his leg, and I had just gotten laid off, so we had plenty of time, and we knew that even if it came out bad, no matter how bad it was, we were going to get through the whole 5 gallons.
Nice.
And then like how serious did this hobby kind of take off to where you started like kind of honing in as like maybe this is something I can do and get paid for it?
It was kind of by chance. I was just at the home brew mart picking up ingredients, and I saw they were hiring, so I applied and got the job. And then the home brew mart's the parent company of Ballast Point,
right?
And so eventually I got into the brewing role, and I've loved it ever since.
So how do you get into that brewing role? Is that just like staying around late nights and you're just like always being that guy that's like, I'll do that, I'll try this, and just kind of getting a feel for everything within the brewery? And then they're like, hey, why don't you start brewing?
Yeah, I would come in super early, so I'd get there, 6 in the morning if they were brewing that early, and then kind of volunteer until my shift started at 11, and just work the long days with volunteering, kind of getting, a little bit of experience on like a professional brew house.
Were there any like surprises right off the bat where like, oh, this isn't a 5 gallon jug anymore? It's not the comfort of my house. Like this is kind of a different lifestyle.
There's a lot more at stake. I mean, if you mess up a 5 gallon batch, it's only 5 gallons.
Yeah.
Not the hundreds of thousands of gallons on a commercial system.
Has that happened?
One seltzer we've had to dump, but no beer yet.
No. Okay, good. Yeah.
You see, hopefully never, but
you see those viral videos sometimes where the guy like looks in the vat and just like starts spewing out and just floods the whole beer. Haven't had that yet?
No.
Okay.
No, nothing like that. Double, triple check all your valves and fittings.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine at Ballast too, there's a lot of safety measures and things like that have been built in because that place has been around a long time.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about Ataraxia and how you and your co-founder met, and who came up with the name and what's the story behind that.
We had met just through mutual friends over time, kept running into each other, and he had talked about opening a restaurant and kind of veered towards opening a brewery. And when the opportunity presented itself, we kind of just took it. Ataraxia means tranquility. It's an old Greek word. Yeah,
okay.
So try to capture the calm Zen vibe in the brewery.
Yeah, nice. I think it shows off kind of on your logo as well. Is this something that you guys created yourself, or did you commission that to get created for you?
More or less. It was Alex's idea. He had kind of the rough sketches, and then our first run of merch, they kind of sourced it to like a third-party artist, and they kind of made that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think one of Alex's friends actually had a big part in creating that logo.
All right, and then so we've had a couple breweries on the show, and we never really get into kind of like the X's and O's of starting it, and the first kind of things that obviously you need a space, but then like what are the things that people need to know you need to start a brewery, like essentials list? What's that grocery list look like with materials and equipment?
I mean, you need the brew house and some fermenters. Obviously, it's kind of the guts of a brewery. You're gonna need like a glycol chiller to keep the tanks temperature controlled. Yeah, we kind of lucked out. We moved into an existing brewery, so all that stuff was already there. But one thing that gets overlooked, or at least underestimated, is the cost of construction. So we got to bypass all that by getting into a turnkey location. But yeah, the construction gets pretty pricey. You know, the floor drains and getting everything set up where you wanted. The construction of the bar.
Right.
Yeah. So that was one of the deciding factors of us taking the brewery, is that all that was already done.
Yeah. That seems like a huge plus. So for you guys, what would you say is the most difficult step in getting the brewery open? Sometimes people say it's like the liquor license, just getting that, but I don't know if that's the case when you are walking into a space that's already, been a brewery before.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, the licensing still took a while. We hired on. There's like the craft beer attorney in San Diego, so she's pretty well known for handling all that kind of stuff. And she had actually worked with the previous brewery, and then when we came to her, she was able to get everything pretty streamlined. We got approved, got a first try. Yeah, it's important to contact the office every single day. Be annoying.
Yeah,
they'll push it through just so they don't have to hear you anymore.
The fun side of opening a brewery.
Yeah.
All the paperwork and legal work. So you get the existing brewery, you kind of have the bones, it's all set for you, and then you finally get the keys, and it's you and your partner's place. But it's kind of like the first couple days. What are you guys doing? Are you cleaning? Are you changing it? Or are you brewing beer right away?
Changing it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were some of the major changes you did?
Just kind of upgrading some of the fermenters, kind of getting them more like to my preference. Maybe not necessarily improving upon the system, but kind of just more towards my preference. I knew I was going to be the one brewing on it. I wanted it set up for me. Swapped a couple hoses, some pipes, and valves around, and got it just kind of how I liked it.
And then your co-founders kind of working on the front of it, for everybody to walk in kind of area. Okay.
Yeah, the business side. The business side, kind of some of the aesthetics. I told them at the beginning, if all I can do is brew, I'm happy.
Nice.
But fast forward, and that's not exactly how you run a business. It's like one part of it. So yeah, we both do everything.
Nice. Yeah.
And so do you guys have a specific style that you enjoy as a brewer? Do you kind of like reference yourself as like a traditional or a forward thinking experimental, or are there certain varieties that you really focus in and try to perfect?
I really dig the dark beers, porters. We have a brown on right now, and kind of the more maltier beers. I think IPAs, as popular as they are in San Diego, I think they're a little bit more kind of one-dimensional. Add some light grain, throw a bunch of hops in. That's your IPA. But I think there's a lot more complexity with the darker beers, the maltier beers. I think less room for error.
And that's kind of like your wheelhouse. You like the precision. You like being precise with everything.
Yeah.
Well, this Helles is great, by the way. It's not a dark beer at all. Like I'm a big German beer fan, and cool. This is really good, really easy, really just a good beer. There's nothing that's like throwing your taste buds off or anything. It's just smooth, good, and clean.
Yeah. And a lot of people say that judge a brewery by their lagers, by their pilsners, by their Helles. The light beers that you can't mask with hops and you can't mask with dark grains. So it's pretty much that's the beer. You see what you get.
Did you do any like research with like traveling and going abroad and maybe trying to do a little research on different types of beer, and specifically maybe over in like Bavaria or Germany or just throughout the United States, and just do some kind of like a research?
Not exactly. A lot of the stuff that I've researched is just stuff I've read. So yeah, I haven't really been to a lot of I haven't really been to other countries and tried their beer. So it's all, I'm kind of just trying to nail the styles I have with what I've read that they're supposed to taste like. But we pay close attention to our water. So our water is complete reverse osmosis, stripped of all its minerals, and then we add the minerals back in. And the big advantage with that is you can kind of fine tune the water style based on, a region that a particular beer is brewed in.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Mhm.
I'm curious if you guys have any breweries that, obviously coming from Ballast Point, maybe that's the answer, but do you have any breweries that you admire or modeled part of your operations after?
I wouldn't say modeled our operations after, but as far as breweries I admire, I mean, we're in San Diego and some of the best breweries around here. I mean, just up the street from us is Society. They're one of my favorite local ones. I think they're making real good beer. I think they've made great beer since day one.
Yeah, I've been a fan of theirs too. I think they hit it big. Didn't hit it big, but they pivoted really well in COVID, right? Didn't they like transition to straight like canning most of their beers instead of kegging it and having it in restaurants?
Yeah, yeah, that was when they made the big push to canning. So now you're seeing their beer liquor
Everywhere.
store, yeah, everywhere. So that's nice.
Do you have a favorite a beer that you have made that maybe you don't have it on tap anymore, but you're gonna brew it again, but it's like a special beer and a special recipe that you've made?
We have one on right now. So we have our normal porter, the Great Deliver. We also have a special release right now called the Mooncat, and it's pretty much a beefed up version of that. It's 10%. It has vanilla in it, and that was an old homebrew classic of mine. So we finally brought that back. So I'm pretty happy with that one. Tastes great.
It's got to be pretty gratifying to take a homebrew recipe and then
Mhm.
serve it to the masses in your own brewery.
Yeah.
That's
And,
awesome.
and a lot of the recipes I have are homebrew recipes from back in the day, except now with the experience I've had in a professional brewery setting, they taste more like beer and less like homebrew.
Some better water than the faucet.
Yeah, yeah, that too.
So, we've heard different answers on this question. I think we've had multiple breweries on here, but what dictates what you guys have on tap at any given moment? Are you guys trying to play the hits, keep the customers coming back? These are the three beers that everyone loves, and maybe we're rotating three other ones out. Are you just putting on the ones that you think are really good? How do you, manage your tap list?
I mean, we have a few set beers that are always on, and then the rest kind of rotate. But you know, everybody thinks that once you make your own brewery, you can brew whatever you want, but it doesn't quite work like that because, we would be pushing away a whole group of people if we didn't have, IPAs, if we didn't have hazies. We actually probably about half the time don't have a hazy, but we're shifting more towards having one all the time. And the reason is people in San Diego love their hazies. Give them a reason to come.
Yeah. So if you had your way, you just have a bunch of dark porters and
Not
dark
necessarily. I
beers
do
and
I do like the variety.
yeah.
Yeah, we have a real light-bodied, low bitterness, but really hoppy pale ale, the Pale McPale Face, and I think it's a great beer year-round. I think it satisfies the hop heads. It's 5%, good for kind of a warm day, something light drinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the variety. I like the variety.
So, Pale McPaleface is an interesting name for a beer. I like that. What's the creative process like when you're deciding on, a new beer to make or what to name it? Are you just kind of cycling through the home brews that you've made before? And yeah, Harambe. How do you come up with the names too? Is that, who's coming
We
up with those?
kind of just off the top of our heads, or we'll ask customers, kind of any inspiration we can pull from for names. We get to have fun with it.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's got to be one of the most fun parts of owning a brewery is naming the beers, right?
Yeah. Mm.
How many like names do you and your partner have behind closed doors that are the names of the beers, but for the customers, it's maybe labeled something different?
Very few, actually.
Very few.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're not going to hear them on this podcast. How often are you guys brewing? Does it depend on supply and demand, or are you set schedule?
It's not a set schedule per se. Pretty much, we never have a tank empty. We try to just always have them full all the time. Sometimes I'll brew twice a month. sometimes like for the next 4 weeks, I'm brewing 7 times. It's just kind of,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, we recently started getting our beer canned. So we're brewing a lot more just to get into the cans.
And then
Nice.
what's the process like? Because I know I see it all the time of just like beer awards and beer festivals. Like as a brewery, are you submitting? Are you getting maybe like notified by a committee like, hey, we want to have you guys invite you guys to this festival? Like how does that all work?
Yeah, usually we'll get an email coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and asking us, if we're interested in the festival. We've done, I think we did 3 or 4 last year, and it's a lot of work. It's a long day.
And then as a brewer, is that something that you're kind of like shooting for? Like, do you want the rewards of the medals and the places? Is that important to you, or is it just kind of
Yeah, I
not
think
really?
it's cool to have those accolades for sure.
Yeah.
Last year we didn't submit to like the Great American Beer Fest is the big one in the
Yeah.
United States, and we didn't submit last year. Just kind of our brew schedule and timing didn't really work out. No real reason, but we don't particularly strive to brew like for those specifically. Just kind of if the timing coincides, we'll submit some.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm.
I wanted to learn about that process too, and it sounds like they kind of reach out to you, which is great.
Mhm.
That you don't have to stay on top because there's so many beer festivals.
Yeah, you've been to a couple. What have you been to? Like the dark beer or like the stout?
Festival of barrel
Uh,
aged beer, and yeah, that's a good
Now,
one.
so last year we did the North Park Festival of Beers, and then we did the Punk and Drublic Festival, with NoFX,
Okay.
their
Yeah.
final tour, and then we did like a fundraising type festival. But yeah, as far as like the real big festivals like the World Beer Cup and Great American Beer Fest, uh, since we are so small, it's tough for us to really kind of take off and visit those.
Right.
I mean, we're invited just being a professional brewery, but it's hard for a brewery our size to really be able to kind of attend those big ones. We
Okay.
just kind of attend the local ones, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's good to kind of your community knows you, they see you, and everything like that too. You got to attend those for sure.
Mhm.
I'm curious about something about the industry that would surprise people who don't work in it. Right, Dan and I don't work in the beer or brewing industry. What's something that people they don't see that would surprise people?
Um,
Because it sounds awesome to us.
yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of
Yeah.
work, especially being owner operated like Ataraxia is. We wear every hat imaginable.
Mm.
We're the janitors, we're the brewers, we're the accountants. If there's a job that exists in a business, we do it.
Social media team, marketing.
Social media, that's us. Yep. Well, it's Alex. I try to stay away from that. He's better at it. I'll stick to the brewing.
Yeah, you're not on TikTok.
No, I think I'll leave that up to him.
Do you find that like frustrating though? Because you could see there's some breweries, and I can name names, but I won't. But like in San Diego, they're like super trendy. They have a
Mhm.
really good social media team, and then their tap room's packed. And
Mhm.
personally, I don't think their beer's that good. Does
And
that
that's
kind of rub you the wrong way a little bit? That's kind of where some breweries are pivoting their focus, and it's not on the actual beer.
not necessarily. I wouldn't say it rubs me the wrong way. I do wish that quality of the beer was people's number one decision in drinking at a brewery. But I mean, we're shifting now to the social media era of the world, and pretty much you need to have that presence and have kind of the online marketing and all that, and that's going to drive business more than product. And that's not specific to the brewing industry.
Right. Yeah. No.
That's
We have
any
a hard
industry I can think of.
we have a hard time with it too.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's everywhere. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where can people find Ataraxia beer? You mentioned you guys started canning a lot more now. Are you guys putting on a lot more beer lately?
So we just have the cans for our tap room, but we are at a few bars kind of just around town.
Mhm.
We have kegs here and there.
Cool. And what is the process like too to get in like the little corner stores? Do you have to like go to them and be like, hey, I want you guys to, put my beer on your shelves kind of thing?
Pretty much, yeah. We just pretty much door-to-door sales. Go to every business and bar and restaurant, and
And
see
that's
if they got. Being that we are a small brewery and we're self-distributed, we usually got to find one that has a rotating tap. If they like our beer enough, they'll have it on permanently. But yeah, I mean, for every bar with 10 taps, there's 200 breweries trying to get their beer in there. So
yeah. How competitive is that? Pretty
it's
tough.
Pretty tough, yeah. And then just doing like the sales aspect of it, we go, and then the manager's not there, so we go back, and 50-50 if the manager's there when they say they will be. And it's just tough, tracking down the right person to talk to. You got to make multiple trips to a restaurant or a bar.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, that on top of all the work we already have to do, it gets pretty busy.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. If you don't have like a dedicated salesperson that's continuously following up, that seems like a lot of work. And one other question I had too, because you guys opened during COVID, is there anything that you would do differently if you were opening now, kind of post-COVID, so to speak?
We had actually tried to open in Reno, Nevada.
Oh,
before.
okay.
Yeah, and COVID's actually what kind of made us halt our plans on that. And then the San Diego Brewery just kind of jumped out at us, so we took the opportunity. But definitely going into a less saturated market.
Is that that's why you're looking at Reno, less saturation?
Yeah. And we had kind of wrote a criteria list, and Reno seemed to check all the boxes. The demographic there is getting younger as a whole, and getting more into kind of craft beer. There's few breweries there, and they're all actually pretty good. The breweries in Reno are pretty damn good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never really heard of Reno being a beer scene.
Yeah, 20 Reno and Sparks, which is the adjacent city. Yeah, 20 or so breweries. Revision is the big one. You can sometimes find their stuff down here.
Nice. So is that like, we could talk future plans of Ataraxia Aleworks? Like if things go the way you want them to, are you thinking about like satellite tasting rooms or kind of second locations?
Yeah, I think satellite tasting room would probably be the next logical step. Somewhere with better foot traffic. I mean, we are somewhat close to a main road, but just kind of the lack of foot traffic hurts us, somewhat significantly.
Yeah. And Evan, you haven't been, but it's like in like industrial park, and there's a lot of breweries like that in Illinois too as well. And they kind of try to build out they start there, right? And then they do their tap rooms, or they find like a building to solidify like their brick and mortar type of bar. I'm curious too, with your co-owner wanting a restaurant, are you then thinking bar, restaurant, brew pub with food?
That would be, I think, a good idea for us to do, because food does draw people in. It gets them staying longer. Yeah, we don't have any immediate plans to do that, but it is something we've kind of just thrown around.
Okay.
Kind of talked about in passing.
Right.
What about canning and shipping some stuff out to Chicago?
Yeah, maybe.
I always throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, we gotta start getting a few more spots in San Diego first, and we can kind of branch out from there.
And then hopefully in the future, right?
Yeah.
And then I just want to, because I was in there and I saw some of your stuff. You had some like Rick and Morty stickers, and just for like the listeners and the viewers, like what's the kind of like vibe that you're going for in your tap room and the customers? Because I think like with the funny names and the funny show for your stickers, are you guys just like all about having a good time?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's what Ataraxia Aleworks is all about.
Right. Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah. Yeah, and just being that we are kind of small owner operated, it's kind of, we can bring our own personalities into the tasting room and to the beers and to the names.
Awesome. Well, Daren, thanks so much for joining us today and for filling us in on Ataraxia, the story of how it was founded and where you guys are today and what your future plans are. It's been awesome to hear. Anything else that you want to drop, like a website or anything where anybody can find Ataraxia?
AtaraxiaAleworks.com, or just Instagram, Facebook at Ataraxia Aleworks.
All right.
Find our stuff.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Daren. Again, he's Daren Rudy, is the co-owner and head of brewing operations for Ataraxia Aleworks in San Diego, California. Daren, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks.
All right, that's been our show today. Thanks again to our guest, Daren Rudy. Again, he's the co-owner and head of brewing operations for Ataraxia Aleworks. That's in San Diego, California. Check it out if you're ever in the San Diego area. For Dan Slowick, I'm Evan Bierman. You've been listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate the show. You can find us on Twitter at Domestic Draft, on Instagram at Domestic Draft Podcast. Our website is domesticdraft.com, and you can watch the show on YouTube. Just search up Domestic Draft and drop us a sub. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.